Let's look if we can add something meaningful. The title which is on the program is the climate, let's say, crisis and biodynamics. What can biodynamics have as a contribution to our critical situation with the climate? And this is quite a theme, because 100 years ago, when the agricultural course took place, climate has not been an issue. So we can't rely directly on what we have from Rudolf Steiner. We have to make our own steps. And I will try to do so in a more anthroposophical way than perhaps in a classical scientific way. And if ever you would like then to have some perhaps data and some slides, I have them with me. Perhaps if ever there is a wish to see and to go into more, let's say, figures and scientific view on it, we can perhaps do it tomorrow or afterwards. But first I would, let's say, remind us that we have the 100 years of this impulse, I call it, and that we celebrate that since 100 years, now this impulse through people, always through people, is, let's say, acting for the earth. And we are probably the fourth generation, and the torch has been given to us. We have it actually, and we have to give it further on. And in this way, it's a huge, I would say, joy, and let's be respectful for that it has been possible throughout this 100 years that always it could have been given on, the impulse, and that, it's not, it has not been only kept by the people present in the course in Koblenz. No, it has spread out, and I have been astonished when I heard in which early day also the impulse came to Australia, Tasmania, New Zealand. So my full recognition and my respect for this very, let's say, long-term work which is here done. My full respect. This is the agricultural course. This is the new edition. And it's in pure German, but the English translation is in work. And when we say this is the agricultural course, you can go to a bookshop and you say, I would like to purchase the agricultural course, and this is it. We have to say it's not quite the full truth, because it's kind of, it's the minutes of what has been in reality. It has been stenographed and then transferred to normal writing, and I would like now, as a first step, to have a kind of look to the reality of the agricultural course. Not on the minutes, but on the reality, on the full reality of these days. And the first thing which is astonishing is that Rudolf Steiner did not say to the farmers, came to Dornach, I have a room, I'm here, I'm busy, I'm ill, I'm old. No, he took himself and with the train made a journey more than 1,000 kilometers to go on a farm. It had to be an on-farm event. And since then we know that our farms, they can be places where the future can come. we know that our farms are in this way, let's say, universities, labs of the future, and places of culture from the first moment on. It's a kind of lifting up what perhaps one considers a farm normally to be just kind of tractors and milking machines and too much work compared to what comes out financially. Huh? No, our farms are places where new cultural impulses can be. And just remember yourself, many of our farms live this. Yeah? Here is a university, okay. But on a farm can be a university for the future in another way. Second, and this is the atmosphere. This estate in Kobrovitz, they gather, it's a kind of, small castle, one could say, so it's not a farmhouse. Huh? It has been an estate. And it has been wonderful weather, spring weather, 7th to the 16th of June, and it has been with sun, and people have just been, joyful and festive, and all of them who witnessed what they lived there, it has been a kind of heaven on earth. Yeah, and you have just to imagine all around. The societal situation has been crisis, but much more crisis than we have nowadays. So it has been a kind of not being disturbed by, let's say, the normal or the current of life, which has been difficult in a deeper sense, and living again the souls to something which is more than just coming for the moment. So a festive atmosphere, and also this I remain as around the world always, biodynamics is a festive agriculture. Okay? It's not just looking for solutions. Yeah? No, it's celebrating life. Third is, and I go now to the soul quality, to the soul dimension of this event, the people who has been there. Very, very different people, about 130. We have the list. We know these biographies and so on. And then they gathered by sight the lectures of Steiner. And by the way, this has been in this estate. It's about 1 hour's drive, either with the car or with the train from the city Breslau. And in the late afternoons and the evening, there has been anthroposophical gatherings in Breslau, in the city, with other people. Quite a big anthroposophical conference. But in the morning, it has been in Kobrovitz, on the farm, and what has been, and then they gathered the farmers, and the project has been to create an association for this new impulse. Quite in the first days. And it happened that it risked to fail. It was difficult for them. The ones have been, it's about economy, that we have better conditions financially at the end of the farm. It has been Count Kaiserling, he has been an entrepreneur, huge surfaces and so on. And the other one, and this has been Ernst Stegemann, he was an esoteric man. He said, no, it's about meditation. It's about the inner relation with the plants, not about the yields. And the third group has been the young, coming just out of studies, and they said, no, it's about practical work. What is for interest for us is how we can practically do a meaningful work. And out of the struggles they had, they came about that they found together and they overcome their personal, let's say, positions in order to come together for the new impulse. It has been more, let's say, tangible, more substantial than the approach of each one. And from these very first days on, so we have, in the difference, in the diversity, we all have among us this reality that we can join together. And the first association has been the Research Circle, was the name. And from there on, all the biodynamic associations has been kind of, going on with this. So the third situation is that the people has been very diverse, but it came about that they joined together to have one organization. And also this, quite from the first days when the course has been over, this association has been operative. So the power which has been already from the first moment on with the biodynamic impulse came because an organization has been founded. It's not something which one can carry alone. It's something which has been, let's say, carried together. So this has been the physical level, let's say the etherical level or atmosphere, then the astral or soul level with the people, and the fourth level, the I level, I would say, is of course the content of the course. But what did Steiner then say? What has been so impressive? This is the real question. And I will try to enter into this question with one specific, let's say, theme, but I will just now zoom out a little bit and look what has been the life, the biographical situation of Rudolf Steiner when he gave his agricultural course. And this is related to what we have had this afternoon, that we have had a kind of expression by different voices, that we are cut off the nature, the life, the relation with the natural beings, and it's a suffering, and that we would like to relate, to go out of our shoes, to be cut off, and to be again, as it has been in former times, together with the being of nature. And has this been, my question, what Steiner intended, or in which degree, or with which steps? And Steiner was born in 1861. The agricultural course has been in 1924, so he has had the age of 63. And Steiner was born in a very poor family. They had had just nothing, one can say. He was, the father was a worker at the railways on a very low level, and they have been displaced many times, as it is the case for railway workers. And he was good in school, a little bit late in learning to write without mistakes and so on, but then he could make studies in Vienna, and just for to say, even from the first semesters on, he gave lessons to pupils in order to have enough money for his studies. He was always, let's say, independent economically, because the parents didn't have any, I would say, assets or money. And he studied not at the classical university, but at the technical high school, Technische Hochschule. So where the science, the modern science have their place. And he did physics, he did chemicals, he did biology, and so on. So he is trained, he has his study degrees in the modern natural science faculties. And then he went on and he became the editor of Goethe's work about on natural science, and this is different. For example, what about the colors from what Newton did about the colors. So he was deeply in order to understand very deeply Newton, for to understand in which degree and how what Goethe researched about the colors is different from this. And important about plants, because Goethe wrote the Metamorphosis of the Plants, and this is completely another approach, for example, as the one of Linné, who did all the structure of the families of the plants. So he was deeply in, not just on the surface. And so on, and yeah, he did his PhD in philosophy, so he was a keen thinker. And all what has been worked out throughout centuries since the ancient Greek times in philosophy, he knew about. So he was a kind of universal man, and he then moved to Berlin, after Vienna, to Weimar, to Berlin, and it's all only when he became 40 years, in 1901, when he openly started to speak about the spiritual science, which he has had for him, but it was him that he could bring this. Until then, he was a philosopher, a literarian, and a scientific writer and person in Berlin. And he found a group who has been open to his spiritual bringings, and this has been the Theosophical group in Berlin. And so he became kind of general secretary of the Theosophical Society in Germany. He didn't search this, but this has been the only group who said, okay, this was interesting, can you come again? All the others, when he tried to bring something spiritual, they said, oh, shut up, I'm crazy. And I say this, that we are aware that when now we go further on, and after the basic anthroposophical writings and the basic, let's say, structure he developed, then he introduced arts, and this came about then with the building of the first Geotheanum and the mystery dramas and eurythmy and so on. And after the First World War, then came the very practical things, the school, the medical activities, and then also the agriculture. So it's at the very end. And when we now have Steiner in this June 1924, by the way, he was at the end of his active time. It lasted until the 28th of September of this year. He became ill and has to lay down, and already on the 30th of March 1925 he died. So it was the last Whitsun he has been on Earth. And when we now listen to Steiner in this agriculture course, we have to be conscious, and one can absolutely hear it. He is not bringing something which is, let's say, not taking serious this modern science approach. Because he was trained in, and it was one of his very clear statements. This has not been, let's say, a mistake of history that we have fallen into materialism. There is a sense, there is a meaning in this. And when we now go again for a spiritual dimension, for open up, let's say, this too dense materialism, we have to be, we are with anthroposophy in a post-materialistic approach, not in an approach which denies that materialism, meaning this kind of thinking, has its sense and its meaning. It has to be overcome, for sure, but not to deny it and to say it's a mistake of history. Never we should have been gone this path. And why this? What is the reason which brought us to this situation? And to express it very simply, it's our personal freedom. It's only the personal active thinking which could have been, let's say, possible when the access to the spiritual world has been closed. And whom of us would, let's say, not say my personal freedom is perhaps the most important value I carry with me. Yeah? And we are perhaps not enough conscious in which degree this personal freedom, meaning that we can think what we like to think. And in many, many situations even we can act as we like to act. And this is new. Before the Renaissance, before the modern time, this has not been the case. We have been taken by religion, by traditions, in a collective mood, in collective conditions. And this has to be brought to humanity, that we have this individual freedom, and this has had its price. And the price for this huge, let's say, achievement, to have this individual freedom, has been that we had to train ourselves to really be thinkers, feelers, actors out of ourselves, conducting us not only to materialism, also to egoism. And now it's over. Already to Steiner's time, it has been over, and we feel we should be further on with this new culture. So let's go on, but let's be conscious that we are not seeking a kind of, let's say, cultural life which is before individualism, and in this sense before materialism, but after. The curve came down, and now it can go up. But it's not a question not to go down. You know this from life. Huh? One touches the ground and then one can go up again. Okay, this is a little bit clear what I mean. So let's be friends and let's be colleagues with the Aboriginal people or with the Maori in New Zealand or so on. It's great and we can learn a lot from them. And from the other side, yeah, there is a kind of fascination we feel because they speak out of a cultural reality before this happened. But we are after. They are after too, they feel it too. Yeah. Okay. This has been long. Climate has not been touched so far. But this has been about cultural climate. Okay? Climate is more than just the environmental climate. It's a pattern, I would say, for many of our situations. Cultural situations, there is also a social climate. And let's say, yeah, a climate with nature. And what is climate then? Climate is something which is not purely earthly, and is something which is even not cosmic, at least not purely. So, Brian Keats spoke about the stars and the cosmos and these rhythms, and they influence the climate, of course. And we know about soil and the water and what we have on Earth, and this also relates to the climate. And the weather is a little bit more earthly than the climate. And the moon as the narrowest phenomena from the cosmos is already above the climate. So we have with the climate a kind of zone where it is in between. Yeah? It's a layer, it's a zone where Earth and cosmos they encounter. And when we now have to learn either, let's say we have to learn that the climate is under stress, probably provoked by us with our burning of what has been once what has become coal and gas and so on, which has been once been life on Earth, and now we burn it and it's again as CO2 in the atmosphere. So we have to learn something which is new, because it's not solid, it's even not in the reality, let's say, of liquid, of water, it's in the reality of being gas, air. And how can we sustain with our personal conscious, with our AI conscious, when it becomes kind of air situation? Let's try. When we go from where we are, standing with our feet on the earth, and we go a first step above the soil, and let's say where we have grass or cereals. Then we go one step further where we have bushes. Then we go one step further where we have trees. Then we have the birds there. They are beings of the air, let's say. Then we can go further on. We came to hills, perhaps, and the horizon came to our view. Then imagine mountains, Swiss mountains, high mountains. And the clouds already there touch the high mountains. So, what is heaven touches earth. Yeah? It's the earthly appearance of the sky, the clouds. And then we go higher up, and we can go until the moon, let's say, with the other planets, and so on. We can go until the sun, as we have been with Brian, and then, let's say, we come a little bit back, and we can feel that the climate layer, there where climate is kind of at home, is where the last, one can say, earthly reality encounters the last from above reality of cosmic reality. So it's where the two they encounter. And the encounter of the both is a breathing. It breathes, and it's a breathing not with air, it's a breathing with light. Air and light, they belong. The air is the shadow of the light. And there we have a kind of breathing with the light and lower down than with the air. And now, when we say we have a climate issue, we are in this atmospheric situation, and when now we say, okay, can I be on one point there? You can feel, no, I am the periphery. The reality of someone who says, I am, is not a point as here, it's the periphery. And this periphery is the same for me and for you and for you. So we are not as separated as we are here. We are kind together in this shape of periphery. And this is the reality. And this now we have to deal. And we can speak about CO2 and other things, and physicals and so on. But I would say the situation for us, what is the challenge for our consciousness, is that we have to raise our consciousness from a point to a periphery. And then it becomes clear that it's a matter of all of us to become clear with the climate. And when you say, well, I will do nothing because, I don't know, the Chinese, they burn so much coal, it will never help. It's not true. Each one of us is the whole. Okay? And this is, let's say, also the chance of this climate situation. It awakens us to a new consciousness of that we are together responsible for our Earth. Each one has to act, but when one does the exercises just we did, one can become aware that, yeah, we have to raise our consciousness in a way perhaps the older cultures as the Aborigines they have had, but we do it now in this modern way. And when we look now what can biodynamics bring to this situation, I go now, and I told already that when Steiner spoke in 1924 to the farmers, it has not been about climate. The issue has been soil fertility. The main theme of the agricultural course is soil fertility. And to build up the farm organism, the whole, let's say, life situation has, it's, let's say, an approach to create soil fertility. And soil fertility is very important for climate, of course, but it's not the same. Yes. And I will do now an approach because in the third of the lectures of Steiner in the agricultural course, it's the most difficult one. And it's not so much about agriculture and farming, it's about the substances. He speaks about carbon, oxygen, nitrogen, hydrogen, and sulfur. And naming them sisters and brothers who together create the proteins. And the proteins are the carrier, the material, the material carriers of life. Okay? And as we have an issue with the CO2, and we have a kind of blaming of the carbon nowadays, because we think that's too much, let's look what we can learn about carbon in this third lecture. Therein is something about climate, I would say. And I relate to my starting point that now we have Steiner who expresses about a being. He names these substances, and in our case carbon, a being. So it's not just a natural science prick. He creates out of this an approach which leads to the being of carbon. You see, he accepts natural science, but goes a step further. This is anthroposophy. On our first physical level, he names the different natural appearance of carbon, which is, for example, coal, which is graphite, which is also diamond. Is this a word? Yeah. Yeah, diamond. So very various physical appearance of this guy, of this carbon guy, and when I relate this to how we deal nowadays, we speak about CO2 equivalents to make our calculations about the relations in the discussion about climate. And I have sometimes people, they approach and they say this is wrong. But I would say this CO2 equivalents, when one sees them on a physical level, it's like a currency, I would say. Yeah? And if we have dollars, and it's not the dollars who are the problem. You can do very bad things, or silly things, or whatever is the dollars. But you can also do good things, yeah? But what's helpful is that we have currencies which we can work with throughout different countries, or even worldwide. And in this way, I would say that a language has been found which is a common language throughout the world. This helps. That our common task can be fulfilled. Just take it not as, let's say, an expression of the deeper character of the meaning, but just as a language which helps. Yeah? It's like as when you go to an airport and it's more, and you go to Beijing and you see exit, it helps. If it's only written in Chinese, you have a problem. Yeah? In this way. On a second level, Steiner brings the carbon as the one, and this we know from biology, who is taking, let's say, the ideas, the cosmic ideas of each of the plants and brings it into a shape which appears. He is the sculptor. He is the sculptor who is so, let's say, flexible that all ideas of each of the different plants can appear. And this is the living situation, yeah? Where he masters all this situation, or is mastered, and in this way, when one speaks nowadays that one should fix or sequester carbon, this is not the right way to deal with this guy. What is appropriate to him is to say, yeah, go in another shape, go in a life cycle. So he has to be brought by us, if there is too much in the atmosphere, down to life. And life is always in cycles. So not to fix him, not to sequester him, not to bring him into jail, but in life. This is the task on this level. When we go one step further, and we go to the animals and to us, we have now the carbon in the breathing. We breathe oxygen in, and we breathe CO2 out. The animals and we, I mean the higher developed animals. So we are creators of CO2, so we are a problem for the climate. Okay. And here we see that why do we, when we breathe out, why is there carbon related with the oxygen? Because our way to be is that we are not only living beings as the plants, we are conscious beings. And consciousness takes always on life. There is an antagonism between life and consciousness. And also with the animals, they have not a self-consciousness as we have, but they are very conscious what goes around in their habitat. So we see that now we have a new step which acts, which is active in life, and this is consciousness, and this consumes life. And this is another very big theme of the agricultural course, that between beings which are more in a gesture of giving, as the plants, and beings who are more in a gesture of taking, as animals and human beings, there is a kind of big relation which has to be known and has to be, let's say, balanced in each situation in the right way. But let's be conscious that consciousness is in a certain degree something which takes its power, its substance, its force from life. And then we go to the fourth level, the eye level of the carbon. And really Steiner speaks about these substances, carbon, oxygen, nitrogen, as beings. Yeah? And now I have a little bit to invent because it's not addressed by him directly. What is then, let's say, the I being of the carbon? But I would say, relating to what we heard before, It's to be the representative from the sun on the earth, and to be the representative from the earth towards the sun. This is perhaps a kind of characteristic of what it is, the carbon. He makes possible the diversity of life when the relation between sun and earth and the other planets is given. He is the one who takes the inspirations, the intuitions from the spiritual world and makes out of it substance, earthly substance, and this earthly substance in some way is brought by him to a kind of fluidity, of dynamic being, which makes possible that cosmos can act on the earth. So he is a kind of ambassador between earth and sun. Perhaps one can say like this. Yes, and in this way, on the example of the carbon, I tried to bring something which is from the agricultural curse and what can help us, to relate to this question, what can biodynamics bring to this climate crisis we are in? And it means a differentiated approach, not to say it's pure materialistic thinking and it's not for me, and not to say the opposite either, but to see that there are different levels, layers, and in each one of them we have to adapt, to educate our thinking, our relation with nature and the cosmos in a way that makes sense and gives it not fear, but a kind of courage and inventive ideas how we can go further on. And as already Ryan said, the farm organism, the closed farm organism, is then the practical, let's say, approach to this, that we close all cycles the best we can. This is real carbon management, to close the cycles. And this means composting, this means a good manuring, and so on. And the next step is really to work open-minded with the preparations. This is the next step. To invite this new, let's say, substances really to act and to be present and to educate our old nature. Mother Earth is old. She's a grandmother, more and more. And she needs some, let's say, new forces, and the biodynamic preparations, they can help that this situation can sustain and go on. And there we speak about the farm individuality. When we work with the preparations, we make the step from farm organism to farm individuality. And as a last step now, I would open the picture and to say, from the farm individuality, when you try to grasp the term of farm individuality, it means that on this very point, where I farm, where I cultivate the earth with its climate, I create a place where the earth as a whole is represented. And it means that in an indirect way, I help that the earth herself can become more and more an individuality. And in a cosmic sense, an individuality means a sum. The earth is a becoming sum. And this, to a certain degree, is a very wide perspective, but I think it's included in this agricultural course and in our biodynamic impulse. Thank you very much.
The very last piece that you spoke of, I'm enjoying the homeopathy of that. So my little plot of land, if I bring that, was it individuality, farm individuality? If I create a cosmos there, that creates the field that goes out and then everyone else is doing theirs.
Yeah.
So there's a tipping point that comes because we're all engaging in homeopathy. That's how I'm hearing what you're saying.
Yeah. We are, it's a good point, these tipping points. When do they come? There is research about, but one knows that they come quite soon. We don't need half of the surface of the Earth biodynamically worked in order that the tipping point is reached. We need many places, but the many, they can make the point then. This is where we are striving for.
I have a second question.
Yeah.
In Europe, how are you engaging a young audience in BD?
Well, easiest is they come on the farms and they touch life. Nothing. It's not a brain work. It's hands-on. And the ones they join and the other ones not. But really great experiences. One of our children, the son, he had a colleague in school. And this colleague has been very, engaged in this kind of theoretical environment protection, And my son has been very practical on the farm, without any brain relation. And they had a little bit this kind of struggles, because we have cows, and we shouldn't have cows when you calculate, It's horrible. And so he organized that his friend, his colleague, came on the farm for 3 months in the summertime. And all changed. All changed. Without any words, just by touching. So I would say, how can one address the young? My experience is mostly by taking them really in the activity.
Yes. How do we address a government that is throwing a lot of rules and regulations at us as farmers that is crippling a lot of farms? And we can't do a lot of the things we'd like to do.
Well, we need also in the government services people who have touched somehow biodynamics or organics in their curriculum. So I would say the task for us is, and I speak now for the future, is not only to train the practical farmers, but also the agro-engineers, and that some of them then go to the state services, and when they are there, then you can speak with them. This happened a little bit in Switzerland, that kind of generation, the one they started the farms and created the organic movement in Switzerland. The other ones, they did more a scientific curriculum and they went then to the state services. And the third one, they went to the economic reality, to Coop Switzerland, which became the first supermarket chain which provided organic food. And in the government department at this time, there has been an openness for regulations which are open for organic. So it's always through people. You have to find your people which are in the right position. This is my experience.
Thank you. I was just wondering if there's a really simple resource for schools to enable students to learn for us biodynamics.
A simple?
Yeah, it's just a simple resource. I find biodynamics quite complex in the approach
Yeah.
to methodology. And so how do we bring that into schools at a very simple basic level? What are the first things we can be doing? Is there a resource out there that we
Yeah, you have to create the school gardens, and they work therewith, and it's not about understanding, it's about doing. This goes deep, deep in the biography, and this remains there. This is not lost. Even perhaps they are not, let's say, very engaged when they are on the fields, and you have a little bit troubles with that they do what you say and so on. But it's really, I would say, engaging. It's not a question of simplicity. Of course, it's rather complicated and complex when we speak about biodynamics. But to enter into the reality and to go into the inner world of a kind of organism, either garden or farm, this is not at all complicated.